Now, as the results come in on election night, everybody's waiting for news of the call.
Now it appears President Reagan has won.
And he has called Reagan and congratulated him.
That's when the losing presidential candidate calls the winner to concede the election.
A few minutes ago, I called
President Bush,
President Clinton,
President Bush, Barack Obama.
President Obama congratulated Donald Trump
to ensure the smooth transition of power.
Now, of course, that's not always how it goes down.
The vice president has recalled the governor and retracted his concession.
He's not ready to give this up just yet.
Election night is just the start of what can actually be a very lengthy process to officially pick the president, a particular risk in 2020.
Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots.
My single greatest concern. This president's going to try to steal this election.
Now let's back up for a second. When you vote for president, you're not doing it directly. That's why a candidate can win the popular vote, but not the presidency. What you're actually doing, you're voting for electors. Those are people who are appointed in each state to then choose the president and the vice president. Federal law says all election disputes at the state level need to be wrapped up by December 8th, so the electors can cast their ballots on December the 14th. Now, each state governor has got to certify the electors' votes and then send them on to Congress. So the results aren't official until the new Congress counts those ballots on January the 6th. Now, it's usually a straightforward process, but let's say one of the candidates questions the legitimacy of the state's count. The governor could choose not to certify the electors' votes, or, though this is really unlikely, the state legislature could decide to contest the election and send a different count to Congress, meaning Congress could end up with no results or with competing results from the same state. Now, that's a violation of federal law, so Congress would no longer have to honor that state's electors at all. Now, the House and the Senate can then decide which result is valid or throw out the votes from that state altogether. Now, I know you think I'm crazy, but this actually happened. It was 1876, shortly after the Civil War. Samuel Tilden won the popular vote, but there were 19 electoral votes in dispute. Congress had to step in and broker a compromise. Rutherford Hayes was eventually named president in exchange for the end of Reconstruction and the withdrawal of federal troops from the South. Here's where things get even more interesting. If a candidate still doesn't have a majority of electoral votes by the end of this process, the 12th Amendment says the House of Representatives decides who will be president, and each state delegation gets one vote. The Senate picks a vice president. No matter what happens, somebody has got to take the oath of office on January 20th.
So help me God.
If both the president and the vice president are still undecided, the Speaker of the House temporarily gets that job.
One more day of campaigning left in the 2020 presidential race, and the main topic for many, the pandemic, seemingly spiraling out of control. Democratic nominee Joe Biden is pushing his trust of science and the medical experts.
Dr. Fauci called last week for a mask mandate. This isn't a political statement. It's patriotic duty, for God's sake.
While President Donald Trump entertained chants Sunday to fire the nation's leading infectious disease expert, who was warned the country needed to make abrupt changes in behavior, and that Biden's campaign is taking it seriously.
Don't tell anybody, but let me wait till a little bit after the election. I appreciate the advice.
Biden will hold his last events Monday in Ohio and Pennsylvania, and President Trump will hold his final rallies in Wisconsin, Michigan, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania Monday. The Democratic nominee is leading in national polls and in some of these big swing states. In the end, Biden is hoping his message of unity hits the right note with voters.
I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'll govern as an American president.
And Trump counting on his message as the law and order president to carry him to a victory once again.
We are going to defeat the Marxists and the socialists and the rioters and the flag burners and the left-wing extremists.
The presidential election is almost over. Now, one candidate in this race, President Donald Trump, has been overwhelmingly, serially dishonest. The other candidate, former Vice President Joe Biden, has made false claims, and there's no excusing that, but there have just been way, way fewer. To me, there have been three subjects on which Trump has been most egregiously dishonest. The first is the coronavirus pandemic.
We're turning the corner. We're turning the corner. We're rounding like this racetrack. Look at this. It's perfect. It will go away. And as I say, we're rounding the turn. We're rounding the corner. It's going away.
This is the opposite of correct. It's like an up is down reversal of reality. And it's been totally baseless the entire 8 months that Trump has been repeating the same claim. Cases are hitting all-time record highs. Hospitalizations are rising again. The test positivity rate is rising. The number of deaths is again rising. The situation is simply getting worse in the United States. The second subject on which I think Trump has been most egregiously dishonest is mail-in voting. Trump has made a consistent effort to falsely try to convince people that mail-in voting is rife with fraud. Sometimes he even cites imaginary examples.
Watch it. Watch those ballots. Watch what's going on. You're more important than any eyes. And law enforcement is watching, okay? They're watching. Did you see they found 50,000 ballots in like a river?
No ballots were found in a river, let alone 50,000 ballots. This is completely invented. And in general, fraud with mail-in voting is exceedingly rare. The third subject on which Trump has been most egregious is what Biden stands for. In speech after speech, Trump has attributed positions to Biden that Biden does not actually hold. In fact, in some cases, positions he has explicitly rejected. Here is just one of them.
They want to go socialized medicine. Socialized medicine. Go to a hospital and take care of yourself. Get rid of 180 million private plans that people love.
Biden has actually been a vocal opponent of plans to move everyone to public health insurance. He is running on a public option in which people could voluntarily choose a public insurance program if they wanted to. Now, Biden himself delivered some big whoppers during the Democratic primary. He kept telling an invented story about how he'd once been arrested in South Africa trying to visit Nelson Mandela in prison. He later admitted that did not happen. And he kept delivering a highly inaccurate revisionist history of his initial support for the Iraq War. In the general election, though, Biden has been better, mostly on script, mostly factual. However, he still has made some false claims.
Have you ever heard this president say one negative thing about white supremacists? Have you ever heard it? That's the reason I got back in this race.
Now, it's certainly fair to question Trump's response to white supremacists and their violence, but it's not true that Trump has never said one negative thing about them or never condemned them. Trump, in fact, has condemned them on multiple occasions.
I denounce white supremacy. Okay. In one voice, our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy.
One of Biden's most egregious false claims came at the last presidential debate. Trump was challenging him about his past comments about fracking, and Biden said he just never made them.
President Biden to respond.
I never said I oppose fracking.
You said it on tape.
I did. Show the tape. Put it on your website.
I'll put it on.
Put it on the website. The fact of the matter is he's flat lying.
Now, Trump is wrong when he says Biden has a plan to end all fracking. Biden, in fact, is running on a plan to end new leases for oil and gas on public lands and waters in particular. But Biden did, during the Democratic primary, express general opposition to fracking. That's what the tape shows.
Would there be any place for fossil fuels, including coal and fracking, in a Biden administration?
No, we would work it out. We would make sure it's eliminated and no more subsidies for either one of those. Any fossil fuel.
So again, Donald Trump has been way worse than Joe Biden this campaign from an honesty perspective, but Biden certainly hasn't been perfect either.
Regardless of who wins, it's going to be questionable.
Will you accept the results, whatever the result may be?
Yeah, it's America. You got to accept the results, whatever they may be. And Donald Trump will too.
You think he will?
100% he will.
President Trump keeps claiming that the election is going to be rigged and that Democrats are going to cheat. We've come to Wisconsin to a Trump rally to ask Trump supporters what they think of it all. Trump keeps saying it's going to be a rigged election. Do you think it's going to be rigged?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Because that's the only way that they could win.
Will you accept the result of the election?
Not if it goes Democratic.
Really, though?
I would not be very happy with it.
If Biden were to win, I think that you'll see an uprising. Because, you know, the silent majority, I just think that we're not going to stand for it. We have the right to, you know, kick our government out if we don't like it. And I think there's plenty of people that would get together and do that.
You want to be there. You know, these ballots, you see, was I right about the ballots? It's messed up like you wouldn't believe. You know what happens while they're counting them? They're dumping more ballots in there, okay? Where did they come from?
Cases of voter fraud in the United States are extremely, extremely rare. Trump, of course, is trying to build up a picture that something is going very wrong at a fundamental scale.
I don't think it's going to be an issue in Wisconsin.
Most people we spoke to at the rally said they would accept the result of the election even if Trump loses, and they think Trump will too.
If Biden wins, yeah, we're not going to be out riding in the streets like other people do because we don't get our own way. We can be disappointed and then you go on.
There will be a peaceful transition. I think if Trump loses, that will happen by Inauguration Day. If Biden loses, I highly doubt it.
You don't think the Democrats will accept it?
No, they won't accept it.
Their fear is if Trump wins, the other side won't concede.
My wife and I both are afraid of violence may appear. And if violence appears, it's un-American.
You want my honest opinion?
Sure, absolutely.
A Trump win, in my opinion, is going to start up the same thing we've seen with George Floyd and our country burn.
If Trump were to win?
Yeah, I do. Because there's a lot of hate out there.
We have to accept what the majority of the public wants.
1,000 miles away at a Biden event in Georgia on the same day,
unfortunately, I don't feel secure about what the election results will be.
A similar fear exists of the other side.
He's called into question the American voting system so that all Americans are now uncertain about our voting process. And Trump has really laid the groundwork so that we would doubt the results should he lose.
I am fearful that he will not accept the outcome of the election.
There are a lot of militia type pages going up and people threatening, that if Joe Biden wins, they're going to bring up arms, and it's scary. This is the closest I think in my lifetime I've ever felt like that we could actually go to civil war. I mean, it's frightening.
I think it's going to be a very interesting process after November 3rd.